This episode is brought to you by Indie Film Hustle Academy, where filmmakers and screenwriters go to learn from top Hollywood industry professionals. Learn more at ifhacademy.com. Now you wrote Rambo 3 with Sly, and
Right.
I just got it, and I have Sly on my shirt here from First Blood.
Right. Gotta get to that.
Yeah, from First Blood, obviously. And First Blood is a masterpiece, and then Rambo 2 was it was a sensation.
I love Rambo 2.
Sensation, co-written by Mr. Jimmy Cameron at the time. I think this is pre-Aliens. After Terminator, but he was pre-Aliens for that when he wrote. So Rambo 2 was amazing. So you're now tasked to write a sequel to an extremely popular film, which is Rambo 3. What is it like work? Because at that point, Sly, like he's at the height of his power at that point.
He was the number one star
in the world. Yeah, he was the guy in the world. And so at the height of his power, and you're tasked to work with him. What was that experience writing Rambo 3 with him?
Well, let me tell you how I got the gig, first of all. I told you about my script Firebase, my Vietnam-based version of Zulu. So Stallone was looking for somebody to write Rambo 3 with him. So he put the word out to agents. My agent sends him Firebase. He loved Firebase. Calls me in, and he wanted to actually make Firebase. So he's another guy that wanted to make Firebase. So I'm going to make this movie one of these days. Now's not the time. Vietnam still kind of a taboo subject, but I'm going to make this thing. And he would have been perfect in it, by the way. So based upon that and the fact that I was also a Vietnam veteran, like the real deal.
Not Frank Duke style, but like a real deal.
like the real deal. Yeah. It's not, actually got a DD-214 that says, served in Vietnam from this date to this date.
Right.
So he thought that would be a good qualification for a co-writer for a Rambo film. And it turns out that it was. I did my research on Afghanistan and the war over there. Actually, I used to read, there was a magazine called Soldier of Fortune at the time that was constantly doing articles about Afghanistan and, the CIA and Afghanistan. And this stuff was pretty much under the radar with what we'll call the mainstream media. That's the new term now. You didn't read much about it, but Soldier of Fortune was all over it. And they were doing interviews with actual mujahideen. So they had a lot of the background information that I needed to write this thing. And another thing, my first meeting with Stallone, we were both on the same page as far as where Rambo 3 was supposed to take place. Rambo 2, Southeast Asia. Rambo 3, well, what's going on in the world right now that Rambo would want to get involved with, or that Rambo, where is there a conflict with Americans and Russians? Because Russians were also the bad guys in Rambo 2. So Americans versus Russians, foreign country, war zone.
Perfect.
Afghanistan was the only thing that made any kind of sense at all. And Stallone and I both had the exact same idea. We both wanted it to take place in Afghanistan. And the idea was that Troutman goes in first. Now, here's where Stallone and I differed, and I gave him my perspective on it, and he agreed with me. So he look, these big action stars like Stallone, they got an ego, but Stallone's ego is not so big that he would reject a good idea. And his first notion was, so Troutman is going on a mission, because the CIA did used to send Americans over there to sell Stinger missiles. Stinger was a ground-to-air missile that could shoot down a helicopter. So Troutman's going over there. And basically the idea was that Rambo goes to Afghanistan as well, somehow connected to Troutman. But Stallone's idea was when Troutman comes to him and says, "Hey, I'm going to Afghanistan, Johnny. Will you come and help me?" "Well, let me just go get my gear." So basically, Rambo's he's just on board from the get-go. And I felt that sounds very wrong to me, because Rambo is the baddest badass in the world,
obviously,
but he's seen too much war, too much death, too much destruction. He's done with that shit. He doesn't want to go to a war zone. He doesn't want to be.
Well,
he doesn't want to kill anybody else.
It has to be the reluctant. It has to be the reluctant hero. You have to.
Correct.
Right.
And that's one thing that's so appealing about the Rambo character, is that he's the baddest motherfucker in the world, but doesn't want to get involved, doesn't want to fight.
Because he's seen too much already. He's done too much.
And to use an expression that we used a lot back in the 80s, until he was pushed too
far. in a world where water is wet and ice is cold.
Right. Yeah. So
that line was used so much in every 80s. Like,
absolutely.
Until he was pushed too far.
And for Rambo 3, yeah, he doesn't want to go. He wants to stay in his monastery in Thailand.
Right. Until he was pushed too
far. Yeah, he's pursuing the peaceful path until he was pushed too far. So Troutman goes, and Troutman gets captured, and now Rambo is feeling guilty. Okay, because Troutman asked him for help. He didn't go.
And he's pulled it
because of his wimpy reasoning, like, no, my war is over, Sam. I can't go with you. I've had enough of this shit. So now he's guilty. All right. Now his buddy Troutman, his mentor Troutman,
he's everything.
Has been captured by the evil empire in Afghanistan, and the CIA is not going to send anybody in to rescue him. They can't, because of politics. So the CIA guy, Kurtwood Smith is the guy, comes to Rambo and says, "Hey, we just want you to know, we know where Troutman is, but we can't do anything about it. We're just letting you know in case you want to go rescue your buddy." So that became the basis for the story.
Very, very cool. And then, working with someone like Sly must have been, wonderful. And the movie came out. I remember when the movie came out, it wasn't as big of a hit as First Blood 2, but it did business.
The gestation period was way too long
between the two movies.
No, just from the time that Stallone decided he wanted to do Rambo 3 and Afghanistan until the movie came out. Because there were a lot of roadblocks along the way. Sly was one of them. He started becoming nervous about Afghanistan because it started going into the news cycle every day. People were hearing about Afghanistan. There are negative things being said about Americans getting involved, about the CIA giving Stinger missiles to the Mujahideen, and it started sounding like a hot potato to him, and he decided to back off. There was another storyline we came up with that took place in Siberia, okay, of all places. An American pilot gets shot down in Siberia. Rambo goes to rescue him. He crosses the Bering Strait, and there's Russians that are after this guy. He hasn't been captured yet, but he's shot down. So there's Russian bad guys again. Rambo has to fight off the Russian bad guys, gets him to safety. And it was kind of based on a book. I forgot who wrote it now. I think it might have been Louis L'Amour. It's called Last of the Breed. And Last of the Breed was basically the same kind of story. So then they changed. So I wrote. I'm pretty sure I wrote a few treatments for that one. So now we're talking about snow and ice in Siberia, and then they got. Then he went back to Afghanistan. Then they got Russell Mulcahy hired to direct the movie. And they sent poor Russell all over the world. And I'm not making this up, okay? My first suggestion to Stallone when they were talking about where they're going to shoot this thing, where can we do Afghanistan? I said, what about Israel? Because I had been to Israel before. I was hired by Canon to do a rewrite on. It was one of the Delta Force movies.
Right.
Yeah, Delta Force 2. I was hired to do a rewrite on that. So I've been to Israel. I've been shown all around, and I told Sly, I think Israel would be a perfect place to shoot this movie. And he said, I ain't going to no Israel, okay? Because it's not the best vacation spot. Let's just say. Right. Actually, it is a very good.
You know what I mean.
Yeah.
Especially those years.
Huh?
Especially in those years.
Yeah. We're still. Well, there were wars going on at the time. Like when I was over there working on the Chuck Norris movie, I'd see planes flying north towards Lebanon. I'd hear explosions. Okay, so there was shit going on, but Sly didn't want to go. He was nervous about it. And they sent poor Russell Mulcahy all over the world. They even had him looking in Canada, like some of the middle provinces in Canada. I think there's good production deals there. They had him going to. I know he went.
So where did you guys finally shoot? Where did they finally shoot?
Israel.
Oh, they did shoot Israel.
I basically came back to my original idea, which was Israel. Israel would be perfect. They have a film industry there. They have technicians.
Sure.
And they've got, the thing about Israel is they've got all this captured Soviet equipment. They've got they've got Soviet tanks.
Right.
They've got Soviet armored personnel carriages because the Soviets had been supplying all the Arab countries, and they had these wars, and the Israelis won the wars, and then they'd have the spoils of war. So they had all this shit laying around.
Beautiful.
In addition to, the only thing that Israel didn't have was the high mountains. But not every part of Afghanistan is high mountains. There's a deserty part.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So
to watch the rest of this interview, head over to indiefilmhustle.com.